Hello there, my name is Thomas O'Regan, and over the last 3.5 years, me and my wife have built a $4 million portfolio. And there's probably people out there that think, you know what, $4 million isn't that much. That's not a very big property portfolio. But if you think about it this way, we started with $45,000 of cash capital and we invested it into what is now a large portfolio of investment properties that all positive cash flow and generate about $250,000 of rental income. So I just wanted to talk about something that is super important for it's something that you definitely need to understand if you want to build a large portfolio. Well, either you need to understand it or you need to have someone on your team, a mortgage broker that is, that really knows their way around financing and strategizing to build a large portfolio. I'll just a few things I might point out. There's like the DTI, debt to income ratio, is a measurement that banks use to calculate whether you can service any more debt. So basically, how it works is a normal DTI can range in banks can range from 5 to 6 times, and that means whatever your income is, you can borrow 5 to 6 times depending on the bank that limit. So there's other measurements that banks use and lending institutions use to measure whether you can borrow or whether they are going to let you, whether you can borrow money from the bank or whatever institution that is that's lending you the money. But DTI is just one of them. And so basically the way it works is, say, for example, if you earn $100,000, you can take on, if the bank's DTI limit is 6, that means you can take on $600,000 of debt. So how it works is $100,000 times 6, or whatever your income is, times 6, and that's your maximum amount of debt that you can take on with that bank. Now you're probably thinking, okay, yeah, I make $100,000, or you make near $100,000, and $600,000 of debt doesn't seem like that much. It seems like you can't really buy too much property with $600,000. Now, this is where a good mortgage broker comes in, because as I said, like most banks have between a 5 and a 6 times debt to income ratio, but some banks or some lending institutions, second tier and third tier lending institutions, don't have a debt to income ratio. They don't have a DTI. And some of them might have one, but it's higher. It might be like 7 or it might be 8. But generally, when you're starting out your investment portfolio, you'll just get lending from most of the big four banks. That's where most people start, because they're the most competitive with their rates, and it's just an easy place to start, right? But as you get on in your investment journey, you'll start needing to use different banks. You'll have multiple loans with multiple banks if you're building a large portfolio, and then you'll start to go to tier 2, sorry, and tier 3 lenders, because they have a bit more flexibility in their lending, and they have a bit more flexibility in their lending because they are not regulated like the banks. The banks are regulated by a body called APRA. Okay, so APRA just makes sure the banks are doing what's it called? Responsible lending. So they put a load of restrictions on the banks to stop them lending to people that can potentially go bankrupt or not be able to pay their debt. But other institutions, tier 3, tier 2 lenders, don't have these same restrictions. But the downside of using these other lenders is they have higher interest rates. So that's the difference. But when it comes to building a large portfolio, once you get your portfolio going, you'll slowly start to understand that the game is to build the property portfolio as large as possible. The game isn't to get the best interest rate. if you are a savvy investor, you will understand that the interest rate is irrelevant. Okay, so what's most important that you need to focus on as an investor is this property cash flowing? Is this property cash flowing positive? And is the portfolio getting capital growth? And if those two things are checked, then the interest rate will be irrelevant. If you can find a property that is generating enough income to support whatever interest rate, obviously the interest rate is 100% irrelevant. I hope you guys understand that. But that's just a little bit about lending and why it's important to understand lending so you can strategize on how you're going to build a large portfolio. I'll leave it with that, guys. See you next time. Bye.